So I put 20,000 miles on the truck so far. How's it going? Well, I'm fitting to tell you. So I got home yesterday, looked down at the odometer on the truck and realized I had put a little over 20,000 miles on this in the almost 2 months I've owned it. And how's it gone? Well, surprisingly better than I thought. So let's go over. I'll show you what I fixed so far and what still needs to go. The interior is really quite a mess, but I've been in it. I don't like the rubber floors or the seats, and that's just cosmetic. But we'll start over here with this box. This box here, they're pretty expensive. When I got it, it was just full of muck, wouldn't drain. So I've actually cleaned it up and put all new clean jars and whatnot in there. Yeah, that's nasty. It took me all day to clean that out. It was a mess. Tires are all pretty good, except it's they're hard. They basically have been the guy who had the truck before me ran to California through the desert all summer. They are pretty well heat baked, so they do get a little slippery in the rain and all that, and so getting past that, getting them to loosen up again, has been a little difficult. But for the most part, it's been all right. Everything's been good, although my plans do involve putting new mud flaps and hangers on here soon. The reason you're seeing all these spotting over here is because I did run it by the car wash yesterday. Got a little bit of grease on that side, but there's been looks like I might be in for a wheel seal there. We'll have to keep an eye on that. With the humidity out here, I did wash the truck yesterday, and there's still moisture on everything, so you don't know if it's a wheel seal. There's no oil that's really spun out. The oil over there, you can still see the same spotting on this side. It's just, yeah, you can still see the same spotting on this side. So that's just the water in there. It hasn't rained, which it's going to rain here soon, but that's just from the car wash yesterday. So we'll keep an eye on that. I am taking it in for a service when I come back out. So let's go back around on this side here, and we'll go to the APU, and that's kind of where the trouble starts. So I think the APU is leaking some stuff. Had some spotting on the ground earlier. Is that a low tire? Nope. All right, we're good. Had a little spotting on the ground, and from sitting, I think it's here. So the reason I took it by the car wash yesterday was to hose off this particular fitting. As you can see, it's still all wet and all that, but I did put a bunch of degreaser down, and we will be just basically keeping an eye on all of this. Chances are this hose needs to be replaced, which is not a big deal. But it also could have been just from this, because I don't think this tank seals as well as it should. So this gets pretty well covered in diesel. So it might have been some spray. I'm not sure yet. It's one of those deals where there's been spots, but you're not sure if it's oil or antifreeze or a combination of both. It's one of those weird deals that you just kind of have to wait for the problem to present itself. It's not a problem yet. And I haven't seen anything dripping on that, like I said, so we'll just have to keep an eye on that. Like I said, at the beginning of this next week, I will be up getting a service, so we'll just have it checked in. But the temps are all good. I got the gauges here, so let's pop under the hood and I'll show you what I've had to fix so far. The one thing I do like about this is the ease in opening the hood. I don't have to take the big bull bar down, despite the fact I do kind of miss the big bull bar. So, yep, just The engine is surprisingly clean. The only problem we've had is this. Now this right here, these just leak. These leak straight from the factory. So aside from that though, I mean, it's pretty good. This leaks when it's cold, the little motor, the pump, so I'll have to get a new one of those in. You can see that here. But let's go over to the other side. Oh, I am going to have to replace that shock. That shock is dead. So, yeah. Replace that. And I'll do both shocks when I do that one. So, yeah. The only thing I've had to replace is that right there. That started leaking. So, that's something I couldn't fix myself. Now, as you see, it's a little low, and that right there is the APU leaking, I believe. So we'll just have to keep an eye on that. Aside from that, though, everything is really clean under here. I am going to be in for a windshield repair here soon, because right underneath the wiper there, it's got a big rock chip. So I'm going to have to get that fixed. Now, these trucks using a little bit of antifreeze is not a surprise. They do that. I was talking to guys at the shop, and even straight from the factory, they still burn about a quart every a month to 6 weeks. So that's just something you have to just adjust for. It doesn't seem right, but it's just what happens. Other than that, the truck's been getting phenomenal mileage. I locked it. Truck's been getting phenomenal mileage. I mean, I'm actually having to really struggle to get my diamond status at the Loves. It's getting that good. And that's 1,500 gallons a month. So, yeah, we're struggling for that. Now, it is a little dirty. I haven't cleaned it out yet. These seats, both of these seats are going to get replaced here within the next month. I would like to do something with that tablet, but I don't know what to do yet with that or where to put it. I thought about mounting it up here, but that creates its own problems. And the CB, I absolutely hate the CB. I was going to take that cupboard out, but they stuck the PeopleNet unit right next to the CB. So that also creates its own problems. Another thing I'm having to figure out is where to put my cameras. Don't know where to put them yet, but I guess I'll have to figure that out at another date. Other than that, I mean, driving it, the only thing I don't like is this. The Smart Wheel is one of those things you love to hate. It's great, yet it's just terrible. It's in the worst position. You got to learn. But this is the Jake, and this is the trolley bar, and I wish this was here and this was here. That would make life so much easier. There's pluses and advantages to having them in both places, but it's just personal preference. So the only other thing that I do like is that the stereo is actually, it's not a smart nav unit, and that does make it a lot nicer. So it'll be a lot easier to replace when it eventually does go out. So yeah. So all right, so let's talk about performance. Now, it's got roughly, the last engine was a variable torque kind of thing. This is supposed to be, it's supposed to have the same amount of torque as the old truck did. The problem is that we don't have the same amount of horsepower. I went from a 565 down to a 1450 or 450. So that's taking some getting used to. Now, the weak link in this truck between the old truck and the new truck isn't the horsepower, and it's not even the torque. It's the rear ends. I have a 13 speed. So the 13 speed, you know, on the top end is pretty much identical to what we're dealing with. But instead of a 341, it has a 336. Now, if I was running West Coast like the last driver of that truck did, 336s are great. and they'll hum along about 75, 80 miles an hour just perfect. I mean, my last truck did that too. But the 336s make it a little harder to take off at lights. And the legs are just a little longer. And that right there has been something that I've really had a hard time getting used to. Just got back into town and I've got to run all over. You know, it's one of those weird things, sitting here doing errands, so I got to go check my mail. And as a lot of truck drivers know, you get a P.O. box for that because you don't want your important mail sitting on the side of the street for a month. One of the things that I've been slowly convinced of is that these APUs are the source of a lot of antifreeze usage. My last truck did the same thing. I swear I had a bad head gasket. I just think they're so cheaply built these days that they just use antifreeze. Unfortunately, in the truck, you just got to keep filling it up. My last truck I wouldn't burn through any of it until I had a lot of excessive APU use, and then it was a mess. So just something I guess you got to keep an eye on. The mechanics wanted to sit there and argue with me about that, but yeah, no, I know they were wrong, but it's a story for another day. I don't like arguing with mechanics. I was a mechanic. Just don't even like it. Now, the dirty little secret about horsepower is you can have all the horsepower in the world. If you can't get it to the ground, it's worthless. My old red truck was tuned up to 600, but it was a low torque engine. 600 horsepower without the torque is pointless. So, yeah, it was just pointless. Yeah. So, you kind of need the torque. This truck has all the torque, but it doesn't have the horsepower, which is actually fairly interesting because it does all the same work the other truck did, but with a wrinkle. It does it a little slower, but the funny thing is, as slow as it is, and you know, it takes a bit to wind up, it is consistent. But here's the thing, this truck was built for a fleet. Discovered I've got one of the last streets in town with mailboxes on the roads. Of course, from what I also understood, my street was one of the last streets in town to be paved. So, we still are considered rural Route 4, but we're in this little town, so I don't know how this all works, but it makes sense to somebody somewhere. There we go. Alley-oop. Nope. I've been looking for a new mailbox, but you just can't find a good quality built one anymore. To this day, I'll never understand why the Postal Service sends me junk mail telling me to use the mail. Apparently, I'm already using it. So, sorry about the lighting. It's just gloomy out today. And I'm not one of those fancy YouTubers that have all sorts of, you know, lighting things and whatnots. But I lost my Coca-Cola. Ugh. The perceived shortcomings of the truck aren't really that, they're not as serious as one would think. The truck is literally doing everything it's supposed to be doing. And it does it well. Don't get me wrong, it doesn't have the get up and go and the oomph of the last truck. And it doesn't have the flair. Don't get me wrong. But that being said, the truck does everything it's supposed to, and it does it pretty well. The complaints I have are just mostly personal. Like I said, this is a fleet truck. These fleet trucks are not tailored for the individual. They are tailored as one size fits all. The company buys the same spec through all their trucks. All companies do this, and my company is no different. Well, I wish I could do something with that. But that being said, you know, my last truck was an owner-operator spec. And that was kind of the rare exception. It was a company truck, but it was driven by one guy the whole time, and he spec'd it out. It was a senior driver, from what I understand. So, It was spec'd out for that driver, but the company was small enough that it could do that. But, you know, this was a fleet truck. But it does everything it needs to do, and it does it well. It gets good mileage. It goes down the road straight. I don't really have any real complaints other than just the petty normal complaints of a guy who came out of a very nice Peterbilt into a fleet truck. So 20,000 miles in, it's pretty good. Now, I do know that there's going to be maintenance coming. Of course there's going to be maintenance coming. It's a semi-truck. There's always maintenance. At 500,000 miles, I'm going to take it up to Kenworth. I'm going to have the overhead run. Have that done probably around the first of the year. So have the overhead run. I'm going to have new seats put in. I do know that at 500,000, we're going to start having some emissions problems. Maintenance is coming due. But aside from that, stuff that I already know is coming, the truck was a good deal. I got a great price for my old truck. I got a great price on this truck. And as if anybody's been watching the truck market, you know, finding exactly what you want's been real hard. But the future of the truck market, I think, is what's going to save me. I decided to move into the kitchen where there's a little more of an echo and better light. So what do I mean about the future truck market? If you've been watching it, the big pack car has been forcing their will on everybody. And people are starting to respond. If you want a Peterbilt, you either, with a Cummins in it, you got to pay. And you got to wait. And there's only so many slots open. And from what I'm seeing with a lot of the dealers, especially out there in western Kansas, is it's a lot of, how can I put this gently? There's a lot of smoke and mirrors. A lot of the slots are getting sold to guys' friends and, you know, buddies. And a lot of guys I know are getting bumped out of their slots. They say you're not going to have a truck for 11 months, but if you don't contact them once every 90 days, they'll just sell your slot. Well, we didn't hear from you. My build date wasn't for 11 months. And what's happening now is a lot of guys are losing their spots for the last year for the 389s. And what if I believe all the slots for the 389s, they're not building them anymore after this year. This is last year from what I understand. So what I have out there, the combination, despite the fact it's a plastic fantastic, is I have a very good combination. 450 horse ISX, or X15, excuse me, a 13 speed, and a 336 rears. Now, I can always get the transmission turned into an 18 if I want. I really don't want. And if I ever have to do the rear ends on this, I'll probably swap them out with 341s. I really did like that combination for what I do here in the Midwest. I don't run out west anymore. If I was running East Coast, Virginia, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and all that, I would probably have the 341s, but truthfully, I would probably want 373s. It sounds nuts to say that, but it's so hilly that you're going to spend all your time shifting, going up and down, this, that, and the other thing. And for what I do and going out there, a 373 with some decent sized rubber would probably be just what the doctor ordered. But that's all subject for interpretation. 355s and some low pros would probably do you pretty good too. But that being said, the truck is performing well. And I'm pleased with it. It's made me a bit of money so far. It's the wrong time of year to really start counting your chickens before they hatch. But it's done well. Like I said, I know that there's some maintenance coming. And I know that there's trouble on the horizon. It's a semi-truck. There's always trouble on the horizon. But if you catch it early enough, it's not too bad. So, that being said, the first 20,000 miles has been really good. It's made me money. And, you know, the one thing to remember is the truck's paid for. I was very blessed for that to happen. But not only that is the money's made in the trailer. That trailer I pull is pulled by 1,000 different trucks. So, and I'm making money with it, and that's kind of why we're at. Like I've always said before, you get your first truck, you get your nice truck, you get your next truck. This is my next truck. Would I have loved to have had a hood? Absolutely. I love hoods. I like Peterbilts. I like the brand. I always have, probably always will. You know, but it kind of harkens back to, you know, the old days of the 359s and the 79s and, you know, stuff I did way back when. Maybe I am lost in nostalgia and kind of lost in the past. But that being said, the truck's good. So I'll give it another few months and we'll talk about it probably in 6 months to see how she's doing. So, hey, if you guys are looking for a truck, it's really not time to be picky right now. But the market is starting to correct itself. So there's going to be a lot of neat things for sale here soon. So if you can hold out, hold out. If not, shop wisely, guys. But I got a good deal on this truck. So I guess time will tell. So I appreciate it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next video.